Hey everyone, I'm John Lynn, the founder and chief editor at healthKERI IT Today. We're excited to bring you another in our series of interviews with top leaders in health IT. We're here at the DirectTrust conference, and our guest today is Jared Jeffery. He's CEO and founder at healthKERI, and Ken Deans, he's president and CEO at Health Sciences South Carolina. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, excited to dive into this conversation, and we've had healthKERI on before. It's going to be interesting to see the evolution of this product. We shared your story. Everyone should go check out that video, hearing the origin story of healthKERI. But before we dive into kind of where you're at today and how it's progressing, tell us a little bit about yourself in healthKERI.
Yeah, so long story short, healthKERI is a venture-backed startup in healthcare that does secure data exchange for clinical data. I kind of came up with the company about 2 years ago now. We've been running for that time right after I was diagnosed with brain cancer. So, I mean, the obvious path for any founder is you get brain cancer, you start a company. That I think is just the normal the path.
That's what I would do.
Yeah, right, obviously. But for me, it was basically, I had this really traumatic experience that kind of taught me that all of the risk meters I thought I had were broken. And I should just go do really cool things for the industry that I've dedicated my career to. So that was the impetus for us to go and get this thing started. And now we're up and running. We've got a pilot that's live with HSSC. We're really excited about, and that's kind of where Ken and I started to really make a connection between the two companies.
Yeah, we're going to dive into that. Before we do, Ken, tell us about yourself and HSSC.
Yeah, sure. So entire career's been in healthcare for a brief period of time in Department of Defense,
Okay.
But since the late 90s, last 2.5 decades in healthcare, most of that in the four walls of the hospital. More recently, in the last 7 years, moved to Health Sciences South Carolina, an organization that's, I guess, what I would call an inclusive public-private entity that represents all the major research universities and most of the health systems in the state of South Carolina.
Okay.
Been in place for about 20 years now. And so that's really it. We're excited to talk about some of our potential forward-looking efforts with healthCERI.
Yeah, let's dive into that. Talk to us about this recent proof of concept that he described that you've been doing it at HSSC, and talk to us about the significance of it. Why did you begin exploring this type of approach to secure data exchange?
Yeah, so we do a lot of data exchange initiatives on behalf of the state in South Carolina. And so, of course, security is always prevalent in our minds. It's on the forefront of everything we do. I mean, if you think about healthcare in general, how many some of the largest breaches in history have we had over the last 12 to 18 months?
Too many.
And so it's always a challenge. And I think what a lot of folks don't appreciate is the level of complexity and effort that goes in behind the scenes to secure your data. And so that's really, I think, what piqued the curiosity and the interest as it relates to healthCERI. I've known Jared for a while, so a trusted source, no pun intended, already. And so when we learned about what healthCERI was doing, it excited us. And so we wanted to drill into it, dig into it, and really better understand it. And once I got familiar with this really what is a novel concept, an application, we got really excited. And so that's really what propelled us to seek to implement and begin piloting, if you will, the healthCERI solution at Health Sciences.
That's awesome. Jared, what would you add to this as far as the pilot and the proof of concept that you've been doing and how it's being used?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that we got excited about here was a recognition that there are new technologies that have been established, are being used in other industries, and we said, well, why can't we have that in healthcare? That was really the impetus for us starting this whole thing, and the use case for us with HSSC is, can we get, in a format agnostic way, secure data from point A to point B? And when I say format agnostic, what I mean is with the system that we've built with the gateways that healthCERI uses, you can do HL7 v2 messaging, you can do FHIR, we can do this through an API, you can do a VPN. We're actually looking at, with some groups outside of HSSC, some things on a portal-based infrastructure. So for us, it's, we know that this data is flowing. And the problem is, so do the bad actors in the industry. And how do we start to harden those endpoints, the pieces of, point A to point B, such that they can do that exchange with assurance on the security of it, rather than asserted security. And we can talk about the differences on that, if you need to.
That's interesting. Ken, what would you add as far as the use cases? Sounds like you've been sharing data for a while, right? And security was obviously the compelling factor here, but talk to us about why that mattered and what use cases you're applying this to.
Yeah, well, I mean, it really kind of applies almost universally to the core use cases that are in healthcare. If you think about the implementations we have throughout all of our patient care areas, and I'm not just referring to health sciences, I'm talking about healthcare as an industry in broad terms. Everything is primarily based off of HL7, most HL7 v2. In the modern era, many of us have started switching over to the FHIR protocol, but the practical reality is that's your first two use cases. How can we secure that data exchange from point A to point B, as Jared referenced, in what I would call an easy to use, almost headless-like fashion? Because the practical reality of it is we've been using certificate authorities for 2.5 decades. That is commonplace practice. But imagine a world where you didn't have to go through that pain and suffering behind the scenes. And so that is the use case, and so I think as we expand from there, the question might be, beyond those core functions that we do in healthcare, HL7, FHIR, in the current state, what else is out there? Well, as we seek to move to adopt artificial intelligence in healthcare, there's a lot of practical scenarios there as it relates to AI safety and other areas. The fact of the matter is the concept is the same of securing data exchange regardless of the particular product or use case. But I would say those are the big ones currently.
Yeah, interesting. I love how you highlighted how it's an easier way to be just as secure or more. It sounds like that's the approach. What else would you add, Jared, as far as what distinguishes the healthKERI solution as far as security protocols? Because there's a lot out there, right? I mean, there's certificates, there's encryption, there's all sorts of things. What kind of distinguishes healthKERI?
Yeah, so I think the really cool innovation that we bring to this space is, and for the techno nerds out there, they'll get what I'm saying, but we're pulling the keys out of the middle and putting them to the edge. And what I mean by that is right now, for most of the data that flows through healthcare pipes, you have somebody in the middle that is asserting you are who you say you are, rather than just taking it on faith. There's an authority in the middle. There's a lot of problems with that infrastructure. It's old, outdated, sure, but there's also a logistical burden on the systems that have to engage in that. So by moving those keys to the edge, and we're talking about cryptographic keys, not your house keys, but I mean, listen, if you want to move those two,
the nerds understood.
Yeah, exactly. The truth of the matter is that in this infrastructure, what you can do is, for example, rather than going through a laborious certification process, and you have to get on a call or in person once a year to attest to your identity, whatever that is, with the KERI protocol, which is open source, open standard, anybody can go look at the GitHub repositories. If they want to do something like this, they don't need me. You can, instead of relying on a third party, assert your own identity in a way that other people can trust. So there's an old cartoon, I don't know if you've seen it. It is a dog sitting at a laptop. And the caption, it's like a Far Side comic. The caption is, on the internet, nobody knows you're a dog. And this is, pretty endemic of the actual problem of internet exchanges. Can I trust that you are who you claim to be?
Sure.
And with the KERI infrastructure, what we've created is something that allows you to never have to trust the other person, and instead you always verify. So I don't go, I think you are John Lynn. You absolutely are. I verified it.
I think there's two things I might add to that too. And the first would be, the reality of it is we can protect or secure data, but it's the old adage, bad data in, bad data out. So I can encapsulate and wrap something around data to protect it, but that doesn't assure me that the data itself is what it ought to be. This, to an extent, solves that problem. And I think adding on to Jared's comment, the other challenge we have is that we have to constantly engage with a trusted third party. Well, this eliminates the need for me to have, quote unquote, a trusted third party. I can begin doing that work myself. And so I think that's an important differentiator.
Yeah. You know, Jared, you and I were talking just before this, and you guys did a pen test, you know, which seems appropriate for a security protocol. Talk to us about the significance of having this pen test and talk about the results.
Yeah, so the truth of the matter is healthKERI is, you know, the tech itself is fairly mature, has been adopted elsewhere, but our implementation in healthcare is pretty new. I mean, Ken is the guy that bit the bullet and said, let's go see if this thing's real. So the pen test that we did was really twofold. One, it gives us some early quick assurances that I'm not up in the night and the security promises that we've been making are valid, which is what the pen test found, just by the way. But the second thing is that it allows us a stepping stone into the next step of evolution. So really what we want to see with this proof of concept, I say this all the time, I kind of sit as half businessman, half missionary, because the core technologies we're talking about here will actually make things better, and you don't need to talk to me to get to those. And so part of our hope with this proof of concept and the pen test that followed it was to show people enough confidence to say, let's go do our own pilots with this. Let's explore this new technology and implement it in ways that actually start to solve some of the third-party risk that exists in healthcare's data exchange.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's right. You know, the reality of it is we first learned of the KERI protocol, and healthKERI is an ability to bring that into healthcare. And in theory, it looked great, right? And so we said, well, let's get under the hood and take a peek and see what it looks like. Did that. Then we began to, you know, implement it in a very controlled environment, obviously, to see what it would really do. But of course, you know, I think my first, you know, security posture assessment happened, probably in the middle 1990s, even before healthcare and government days. And so you have to do that, right? So you can have the best theoretical product on the planet, but if you can't prove that it will do what it says it does, then, you know, you've got challenges. And so I think that's the benefit of the penetration testing, is just making sure that it's bulletproof, or to the extent that we're testing. So
that's a great way to look at it.
I'm not going to expand it until I know, you know, not just in theory, but in practice, that it's secure.
That's awesome. I mean, so where do you see this going, Ken? Like, what do you hope the results of this proof of concept will do for healthcare data security? You know, how are you looking to go forward?
Yeah, I think I'd answer that in two ways. The first is that, you know, we've done the proof of concept, we've now done the penetration testing, and it is all that it, you know, claimed to have been. And so we're very pleased with the outcome and the results of that, and with a respected third party to do that work for us. So it's not just our own internal security folks saying it's safe. We want external validation for that, of course. And so we've done that process. I think for us, you know, the first part of the answer of that is, I think for us, it's now to expand it to, you know, all the use cases we have. We manage state HIE, we manage research databases where we ingest a lot of data in different locations for different reasons. There's some pretty substantial AI work we have initiated and ongoing now. So we'll see, you know, where the applicability is there. I mentioned AI safety earlier, that's a big thing. So I think there's next steps for us inside of health sciences, but I think the same would apply to healthcare in whole. So as a recovering CIO, I'm anxious to share this with many of my peers out there, already have, honestly. Because I think every health system could have applicability. I think especially once, you know, this is novel to healthcare. You know, KERI is not new, but healthKERI is new, and we found a trusted partner to implement the KERI product suite, or do the legwork for us. But the reality of it is, most don't know about this zero trust concept. And so I think I'm anxious to get it out there, because I think the use cases are abundant across all of healthcare. If you go to the average health system, pick a small, medium, or large academic medical, you know, your data exchanges or your threads range from couple hundred, even at the smallest places, typically, up to multiple thousands at the largest academic medical centers.
Absolutely.
It's all at risk. It takes one spot, one time to do real damage. And so I think that is the practical reality of it is how can we adopt this as the next evolution or next level of sophistication in securing that data. So
that's awesome. Jared, what would you add? What's next for healthKERI? What are you looking at working on next?
Take over the world. No, I'm just
small vision.
Small vision. No, the truth of the matter is that we see. I mean, it's not a day that goes by that there isn't some new terrible thing happening within the realm of cybersecurity and healthcare. Yeah. And given my own background, I don't have a lot of interest in spending time on things that don't matter. So for us, it's we see the problem, we see a clear solution to the problem, and let's just chase it. So, we're looking at use cases like, for example, in California, they've just created some laws in response to the Dobbs decision around reproductive health. Okay. And now you have health systems that want to share this reproductive health data, but they're legally barred from transferring it outside of the state of California. And okay, well, how do you identify that the other side is only in California, right? It's a very difficult problem that we have a solution to. And there's a myriad of use cases like that we're just going to go chase, because every time we secure or solve those issues, we're making the overall health system better. And maybe that's pie in the sky thinking, but I think when you start a startup, you're supposed to have some pie in the sky thinking, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, you have a vision of helping people with the security, which is a huge challenge for every healthcare organization, every organization in the world, quite frankly.
I think there's a key point here too, is that, I think one of the beauty of this model is it doesn't have to be a rip and replace scenario. So we want to couple this with some of our TLS scenarios, and the practical reality is, I mean, we've penetration tested and realized by itself it is indeed secure. But that doesn't mean we're going to go rip and replace everything. Who wouldn't want to have multiple layers and multiple avenues of barrier to protect your organization? So I think that's another thing too for us, is we've tested it by itself and it was successful. Now we want to put it into play with the other protocols and mechanisms that we already have in place, and see how well they play together, which I think will be great. It's it's like an investment portfolio in the financial world. You want to be well diversified. Well, here's another diversification option for you that just previously hasn't existed.
That's awesome. Jared, Ken, I appreciate you taking time to talk with us and talk about all the progress you've made with the KERI protocol and healthKERI. And thanks everyone for watching and listening. If you want to find more great healthcare IT content like this, be sure to check it out at healthcareittoday.com or search for Healthcare IT Today on your favorite podcast application. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us. And I would add a closing remark to Jared's point earlier. I personally find nerd offensive. Geek is a term of endearment, though, in IT. So
yeah, that's true.
Self-proclaimed geek here.
There's some people that are geeks, some people that are nerds. You decide what you like.
That's right. There you go. Yeah, thanks so much for having us.
Yeah.